I hope you're ready. Show me your sapphire sitting, ready to use your sapphire power for the whole of this story. As always, I'm super excited to read the next chapter with you all. Abacaxi. That's a funny name for a chapter. Wonder what this chapter is going to be about. The next morning, Fred startled awake, which means he jumped awake, with a handful of grass and moss in each hand. The nightmares were getting worse. He blinked, looking around. He wasn't in the den, but lying in the clearing near the pool. He had dreamt he heard his father weeping, which was ridiculous. His father had never cried in his life. He had dreamt he was running home. Deep asleep, he must have heaved his body across the clearing. There were patches torn out of the grass around him. He brushed the mud from his face and he crawled over to the den. Leela and Con lay asleep, their hair tangled together, but the pineapple wasn't there. Nor was Max. I'm feeling nervous and worried because if they've just woken up and Max is gone, well, where's he gone? Remember, they are in the Amazon forest. Where do you think Max has gone? Do you think he's okay? Or do you think he might be in trouble? I hope he's okay. It took a moment for Fred to be sure he wasn't still asleep. Then he jumped to his feet, whispering, "Oh, please, no, 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 no." But there were no bones, no blood. Surely a jaguar would have left bones. Sounds like Fred thinks that Max has been eaten. That wouldn't be a bad guess, bearing in mind they're in the jungle. I really, really hope that isn't what's happened. Fred shook Leela awake. "Max is missing." "We won't," she muttered. She tucked her knees up to her chin and she batted him away. "I'm sleeping." "Max isn't here." "What?" Leela sat bolt upright. Her eyes still had sleep in the corners and they were wild. "Can you show me your wild eyes like you would if you'd just lost somebody you cared about?" Looking really frightened. "Max!" she called. She jumped to her feet, scrambling out of the den, tearing her skin on the thorns. "Max!" She stared around the clearing. Her voice rose to a roar. "Maxie, where are you?" Con came barreling out of the den. "What's happening? Are you all right?" She took one look at Leela's stricken face. "Max!" she called. "Stupid idiot boy! What if something's eaten?" "Don't!" said Leela, rounding on her. "Don't you dare!" And then louder, her voice scraping at the air. "Max! Max!" I've just paused reading the story because I think now's a really good time to think about it. How do you think Leela would be feeling? Her little brother has just gone missing. I think she's going to be really frightened. What other emotions do you think she might be feeling? "He might be by the river," said Fred. "We'll split up," said Leela. "If I go down to the river, will you go back towards the plain?" She stumbled forward, dizzy with panic. "Max!" One of the trees giggled. "Oh, trees can't giggle. I wonder if he's behind a tree." Max stepped out from behind a cedar at the edge of the clearing. "Boo!" he said. He waggled his arms and legs and his tongue at them. "I've been awake for hours. I'm really bored." "Max!" Leela's eyes were brick hard and ferocious. "You vile little brat. If you ever do that again, I'll tell Papa when we get home and he'll beat you with his shoe." Max's face fell. "He wouldn't. He never hits me." "He would if I told him what you did." She looked closer at him, her eyes narrowing. "Where did you go?" "Secret." "And did you eat the pineapple?" "Secret," said Max. He wiped guiltily at his cheek. "Max!" Leela balled her fists. "Max, if you ate all our food, I don't care what Mama would say. I'll smack you so hard." Max pressed his lips together and shook his head. Pick me up, Leela, he said. Tell us, Max, where did you go? Up. His eyes filled with tears. I'll tell you if you pick me up. He began to shudder with huge body-shaking sobs. Leela gave a hiss of fury. She picked him up. The sobs ceased immediately, which means he stopped crying because he'd got what he wanted. He just wanted a cuddle. Leela was super cross with him because he'd ran off and she was so worried about him. You can't get your own way just by crying, said Con, her face tight. He smiled up at her. His face was clear of tears. Yes, I can, he said. Now tell me. Leela took hold of Max's chin. Where did you go? Where's the pineapple? Did you steal it? Did you eat it all? No. I wanted to share some with the animal. Which animal? The monkey thing. Where? By the lavatories, said Max. He was pouting. I didn't do anything wrong. He was hungry. I was being kind. Leela dropped Max on the ground. He gave a wail that saw her face and stopped. Show me, said Leela, or I won't believe you. An unexpected excitement gripped Fred. Leela began to run, the other three following, down the path they had hacked, towards the cluster of trees surrounding the trunk of the boys' lavatory. Max was tugged along by the hand, his legs pounding double time to keep up. Slow down, he wailed. They passed the lavatory and moved out of the sunlight into the thick-growing trees. Suddenly, Max stopped. It's there! He pointed up at a low-hanging branch. See? I wasn't lying. Take a moment now. What animals do you know that would live in the Amazon rainforest? What animals do you know that might like to eat a pineapple? Take this time just to have a little think, and we'll see if your guess is correct. Above their heads rose a great flowering white tree. From one of the branches hung a small animal, unlike anything Fred had ever seen before. It was looking up with huge eyes at a vulture in the branches above its head. On the ground below it were 3 chunks of pineapple, untouched, and some distance away 2 more vultures crouched over the corpse of a larger version of the same animal. Get away! Yelled Leela. She ran forward, kicking at the birds. Get away from it! The 2 vultures on the ground took off, startled, but the vulture in the tree only ruffled its feathers. It was enormous, as broad as a Labrador around the middle, and its eyes watched the tiny animal hungrily. The animal on the branch let out a mew like a cat. It was grey-brown with a cream face, a dog-like snout, and immense black eyes. Its arms were long and chicken bone thin, ending in curved claws. It was small enough to cup in your hands. Okay, we've just learnt some new information. We've learnt that they found this animal. We know that Max was feeding the animal the whole time. He wasn't in danger. He was trying to be really friendly. I'm now going to set us all a task. I'm going to do it as well. I'm going to give you some time where you might want to pause the video now to have a go at drawing this creature. I'll read the description to you again, and you can either do it on a piece of scrap paper that you found in your house, or you could do it in one of your learning books. The animal on the branch let out a mew like a cat. It was grey-brown with a cream face, a dog-like snout, that means a dog-like nose, and immense black eyes. Its arms were long and chicken bone thin, ending in curved claws. It was small enough to cup in your hands. Okay, I'm going to go and have a go at drawing it now. Why don't you go and have a go too? And if you're really impressed with your drawing, you could always email it to us and it might end up on the website. Okay, here's my version of what I think the creature looks like using the clues from the text. Did your creature look similar, or did it look different? It's okay if it looked different, because it's everybody's interpretation. Everyone is going to think of it a little different. Well done for having a go. Leela ran to the base of the tree, gripped the lowest branch, and scrabbled with her feet against the trunk. The vulture, feeling the tree shake, flapped its wings, called, and disappeared. Leela hauled herself into the branches. Her knees were shaking. Her breath was unusually loud. Wonder why? What feeling do you think she is feeling now? She sat on the branch where the animal was perched and began to scoot forward, both hands gripping tight. With quivering fingers, she unwound its legs from the branch and rewound them around her arm. The creature let out a mewling sound. Leela began to edge backwards along the branch. Fred could hear her whispering prayers under her breath. I think that's probably because she's feeling a bit scared. She stumbled as she landed on the ground and half fell, but made sure to keep the arm with the animal high above her head so that the animal didn't fall off. Max ran to her. "What is it? Let me see." "It's a sloth," said Leela. Her voice was hushed with awe. "A baby sloth." Fred stepped closer. It was one of the most extraordinary things he'd ever seen. It was very ugly and very beautiful, both at once. Its fur still had the fluffiness of babyhood. "Let's make it play," said Max. He grabbed at Leela's arm. "No!" Leela seized his wrist, cradling the sloth against her chest. "Don't! You'll hurt it." The brother and sister glared at each other. "No, I won't. I'll be soft." "Maxie, you mustn't. It's terrified. It doesn't have a mother to protect it. See, it's shaking." "But I love it!" Max looked dangerously close to tears. "But it doesn't need you to love it to death." "Needs us to be slow," whispered Leela. "Come on, Maxie. Let's take it back to the camp. You can bring the pineapple." Back in the clearing, Leela made a bed of soft grass for the sloth. She set it down on its stomach where it lay quivering and held out the pineapple to it. "I want to touch it," said Max. "No," said Leela as she sat down. "Let him catch his breath." The sloth shook. Leela shook. Every part of her radiated longing. It was probably best, Fred imagined, to leave people alone at such moments. People suddenly bludgeoned by passions were unpredictable. They might bite or cry. He stepped backwards, giving her room. The sloth moved very slowly out of its bed and towards Leela. It reached her shoe and crawled. So slowly Fred was sure he could hear its muscles stretching and retracting under its fur, into Leela's lap. With a peculiar jerky grace, the sloth reached out and grasped the pineapple between its front claws. Leela didn't seem to be breathing, but it was as if a light came out of her. She seemed to glow out into the forest. The sloth struggled to arrange the fruit so it could still bite it, but Leela didn't move. She sat stock still, watching as it sprawled itself more comfortably across her lap. It moved like an unoiled rocking horse, Fred thought. Leela looked up and saw them. "I've never seen one in real life," she whispered. "People always told me sloths are slow and stupid, but I think they're only slow the way a ballet is slow." Very, very softly, she laid a finger on the sloth's chest. "I can feel his heart. It's fast. It's a different rhythm." The sloth finished chewing at the pineapple. It crawled up Leela's arms and clung to her, up near her shoulder, resting its head just below her right ear. It made a little snorting noise, and Leela's hair ruffled. "He needs a name," said Con. "I've never named anything," said Leela. Her neck twisted to look at the sloth. He was trying very slowly to eat her earlobe. "You don't have pets?" asked Fred. It seemed strange for a person who was so clearly designed to live alongside living things. "I was never allowed one. I begged and begged, but Mama and Papa move a lot for their work, and they said it wouldn't be fair." Leela looked hard at the sloth. She narrowed her eyes. Her lips formed a word. "What's his name?" asked Max. "You have to tell us. It can't be a secret." "Abacaxi," she said. "Yes," said Max authoritatively. "That's good." "Say it again," said Con. "Abacaxi. It's Portuguese for pineapple," said Leela. "Baca for short. So that must have been why the chapter was called Abacaxi. I predict that actually they're probably going to keep the sloth. Do you predict the same, or are you thinking something a little bit different? Let's find out tomorrow.